Today I might be a maven of retail apparel and a sign guru, but once upon a time I was a scientist. And it turns out that being a scientist is a little bit like being Catholic. You can walk away from it, but it's sort of part of who you are, woven into your existence, and you can't really, it never really leaves you. So, anyway, I want to talk about risk versus benefit and energy. To get there, I want to talk a little bit about what I mean by risk versus benefit. My first introduction into risk and benefit comparison is when I took my first toxicology class, way back when, probably about 14 years ago. And the professor was talking about the risks of eating a raw mushroom. And I was like, wait, there's a risk involved with eating a raw mushroom? And of course, everybody in the room looked at me like an idiot. You see, the risks and benefits that I am most familiar with are those involved with pesticides. Ideally, when you choose a pesticide, you choose something that is going to kill the bugs that eat your crops and isn't going to hurt people. Now, unfortunately, this is the real world, and we know that pesticides aren't vitamins. So, most of the time when you eat something, it carries with it a teeny tiny, almost not there risk of something bad happening to you. The benefit, of course, is that you can grow a lot more crops, a lot cheaper, and fewer people starve to death. Now, this is totally oversimplified. There are all kinds of nuances here, and this subject isn't entirely just scientific. It's also really political. Today I want to focus on human health because while I am really worried about the environment with all of these different sources of energy, everybody can agree that human health is important. Conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, no matter what part of the world you live in, you care about human health because you're human. So let's talk about the risks and benefits of oil. If you look at the Gulf oil spill that happened a while back, you probably think, if you're thinking about it, you probably think that that's over with and done with and we don't have to think about it anymore. But the chemicals that we used to break up all that oil didn't make that oil disappear. It's still there. The negative effects on human health due to that oil spill are going to continue for a very long time. And they're going to be really hard to measure. Add to that the negative effects on human health that go with using oil just generally speaking. I mean, we've got all the carbon in the atmosphere, you've got all kinds of residues that are released, like benzoapyrene, which is what I did my graduate work with. All that stuff has a negative impact on human health. Some of it almost as fun to study as the negative effects of pesticides on human health. So it's really hard to measure. Now, when you look at the negative effects of nuclear energy on human health, they seem really simple and straightforward and incredibly scary. I'm not saying that we should be using nuclear energy or that we shouldn't be using nuclear energy. I'm just saying that when you're trying to think scientifically, you're trying to think about what's actually happening, not just what you actually hear about. And so it's a much broader, much more complicated issue than it feels like on the surface of it. And before we discount one source of energy based on what we think the risks and benefits of that source of energy are, we have to look at all of the alternatives. And we absolutely need energy. It seems to me, as terrible as the Japanese disaster has been, and as many human lives as are going to be negatively affected by it, it's not nearly as bad as the negative effects of some of the other sources of energy. Now, I'm not very familiar with the negative effects of coal, but I know that they aren't good. And in this discussion, I think we just need to really broaden our view and think about the whole picture. So I guess what I'm really saying is that things are a lot more complicated than they seem if you're just watching the news. Anyway, have a good day.